Welcome back, squad. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Full Ride, the college recruiting podcast. I am your recruiting coach and host, Quito Delgado, and I am so thrilled you've tuned in yet again. We are continuing our 5-week series debunking common college recruiting myths. I'm going to say that one more time. Debunking common college recruiting myths. This is episode 4. And so if you've missed any episodes, I encourage you to go back a few episodes and start from the beginning. But our goal over the next 5 weeks has been we want to share 2 recruiting myths each episode, right? And we think by doing so, it's going to really put our families in a better position to tackle college recruiting, because so many families fall prey to these myths. They start to believe them, and then as a result, they can make mistakes along the way that could potentially cost them an athletic scholarship to college. So we don't want that to happen whatsoever. So again, if this is your first time checking out the show, welcome to the squad. And we invite you to come back. We have a new episode each and every Thursday, and our goal is really simple. We want to help all of our busy, all of our on-the-go families learn the ins and outs of college recruiting while on the go, right? So maybe you are driving to a practice, you're going to a game, mom and dad, you're sitting in the parking lot, you're walking your dog, you're working out, whatever it is. We hope you listen to us on your favorite podcast app. Or you can also visit us at urecruityou.com, urecruityou.com, and click the podcast link, and you can catch up and listen to all of our episodes as we release them each and every Thursday. And I guess I should reset the show a little bit, because I know there are some people who are listening to us for the very first time. I'll give you a quick story about myself. My name is Quito Delgado. I am a former college athlete. I went to a really small, and I say really small, meaning 64 students were in my graduating class for high school. So I went to a really small high school. We went and we played for a small losing program. And when I say losing, I mean my team went 2-7 for football my junior year and 2-7 my senior year. So I didn't experience a lot of success winning. I did not play at a big powerhouse program. And yet, because I went to a couple showcases my junior year of high school, I did pretty well. I got discovered, if you will. And I had good grades and a good attitude. I was fortunate enough to earn a full athletic scholarship, first to Boston University, where I played my freshman year, but then they cut the football program, and then I decided to transfer, and I finished up at Northeastern University, also in Boston, where I earned my bachelor's degree in business administration, and I was able to do so while playing the sport I love, football, and then graduating debt-free, because I was fortunate. I was one of the 1%. I was part of that 1% of student athletes that are able to go on and get a full athletic scholarship. So I just kind of want to reset that for some of you who are new to the show. You don't know much about me. Like, who am I getting this advice from? Just know that I walked in the shoes that you're currently walking in. I've been there, done that, and I just really want to help you avoid making some of the mistakes that I made, because yes, it worked out for me and my family, but even still, I can tell you, I made a ton of mistakes along the way, and I just want to make sure you can kind of avoid those landmines, if you will, that could cost your son or daughter a scholarship to college. So that's what this podcast is all about, and I'm just so glad that you've tuned in. And again, to all of our existing team members, our existing members of the squad, I am humbled that you keep coming back each and every Thursday. And I just want to get right to it because I don't want to take up too much of your time, especially if, depending on when you listen to this, we do have Halloween on Thursday. I'm recording this, by the way, at 11:40 Wednesday night, the day before Halloween. And I just know that I'll be out trick-or-treating with my 6-year-old daughter. So for all of my families out there who have young ones, I do know that you're also going to be out trick-or-treating. Matter of fact, you may be listening to this while you trick-or-treat. So we do want to continue our series of debunking common college recruiting myths. This is the 4th part of that series. So if you have missed any of the previous episodes, I encourage you to go back. Start with, I believe, episode 27 or 28. But it's a 5-part series. In each episode, I introduce to you 2 new common recruiting myths. So we're on numbers 7 and 8 today. So number 7, I'm going to go with this, that college recruiting is a one-way street, right? And when I say this, let me just backtrack actually for a second, if you allow me to. So I'm feeling really good tonight. I have a lot of energy, and I'm not demonstrating it possibly. I hope it's coming through, but I'm probably not because it is late, and I am recording in my guest room, my studio, and my daughter, my 6-year-old daughter, she's fast asleep, so I don't want to talk too loud. But I do have a lot of energy. I'm feeling really good, and the reason why is because I met with a student athlete today after school, and I met with him and his mom and his younger sister. But he's a freshman in high school, and his mom wanted me to meet with him at the local YMCA. And every time, I get excited to talk to any family, to be honest with you. Any student athlete who has a goal to play in college, but particularly, I get excited whenever I get to talk to a freshman in high school because they are so young, for lack of a better word, naive. And I know I'm talking to them, and they're probably only listening to about 10-15% of what I'm saying, and I understand that. But even still, I'm like, if they get 10-15% of this, that's better than nothing. And honestly, when I meet with families of a student athlete at that age, it's more informational, trying to relay important information to mom, to dad, to kind of, lay that foundation for their student athletes. And so I met with a young man today, and so part of the myth that I'll share with you, and I share with him and his mom, was this. It's, many student athletes think, and parents think, college recruiting is a one-way street. Meaning only the coaches, can reach out to you. The coaches have all the power. The coaches have all the leverage. And to an extent, it's true. They do have a lot of power because they're the ones that are able to offer you, that carrot that you want, which is an opportunity to play in college and an opportunity, to earn a scholarship. But make no mistake about it, because I mentioned this before, due to their limited resources and their limited budgets, college coaches miss out on a lot of talented athletes simply because they don't have enough time in the day to recruit all of them. It's just a fact. They just don't have enough time to get to every single student athlete to see them perform, right? And as I shared to this young man today, with college coaches, it's a business, and one way they are judged in the building, one way they are, when they have their performance reviews and when it comes time for them to get a raise, or when it comes time for them to, get put up for a job or a promotion, I'm telling you right now, they are evaluated based off of how they recruit, right? So why am I sharing this, and how does this relate to the myth that I just shared, that recruiting is not just a one-way street? So many of you think that it's up to the coach to find you and to convince you to go to their school. That I see it happen all the time. It happens all the time. And I'm here to tell you, I really believe, particularly if you are if you're not an All-American, if you're not a top 300 recruit, you're not a 5-star recruit, that's a huge mistake that you may be making. And what I want you to understand is I need you to flip that mindset. College recruiting is 100% a two-way street. And part of that is there's no reason why families shouldn't take control of the recruiting process, and there's no reason why recruits or students should not proactively market and recruit themselves to college coaches. I mean, that's probably the number one reason why I launched my company, You Recruit You. The company name is You Recruit You, because I truly believe it is your responsibility to recruit yourself to college coaches. Take control of the process. And first, it starts with taking control of the process with your ability. You work on your game, you work on your craft, you work out, you get your shots up if you play basketball, you work on your pitching mechanics. Whatever sport you play, apply it to it, but bottom line is you work on your craft. Same thing with academics. You hit the books, you work hard, right? You study, you get the help when you need it. And then lastly, it's attitude, your character. You control your attitude. You control, your character. You control your leadership ability. You control the decisions you make, right? College recruiting, it all starts and ends with you, right? You have to take the initiative. You have to take control of the process. So there is no reason why you should not proactively target schools you want to attend. And I feel like too many families think that, oh, I have to wait for the coach to come find me. I have to wait for the coach to offer me. I have to wait for the coach to invite me to a visit. You don't have to do any of that. As a matter of fact, you should do everything possible to help that coach look good. Think about that for a second. Many of you are underestimating the leverage that you have. You have a great deal of leverage as well, right? If you have good grades, that's a plus. If you have a great attitude, that's a plus. If you have great ability, that's a plus. And then if you have intangibles, you're really fast, you have height, you have strength, you have agility, all those extra things. You have great leadership traits. Those are all extras. Those are things that coaches covet. And they will do anything possible legally to get access to those types of players. And again, for many of them, the reason why they may not be knocking on your door is not because you're not good enough, you're not talented enough, not because you don't have the grades or you don't have a good attitude, is that they just don't know you exist. So if you realize the fact that, wait a minute, I have all these attributes that they want, why not market myself? Why not brand myself? Why not proactively reach out to them? And once you do that, the more coaches you reach out to, the more coaches that you introduce yourself to, the more coaches you can get to show an interest in you, guess what ends up happening? You create that leverage. And so many families truly underestimate the leverage they possibly have. Many of them say, well, we're going to sit back, we're going to wait and hope. And many of you may get lucky. You may get 3 or 4 teams to reach out to you. And that's cool, 3 or 4. But what if you don't want to go to any of them? Or what if one of them, or what if all of them only offer you a half scholarship? Again, not poo-pooing that. That's great. You have 4 or 5 schools all willing to give you a partial scholarship. But what if none of them are on your target list? And what if even with the half scholarship, it's not enough for you to go to that school? You can't afford it. Does you no good. So you really have to create that leverage by saying, well, your offer is nice, but you know what? I have an offer from over here that's willing to give me a full ride, and I'm probably going to take that unless you can do something with your scholarship offer. And that's that leverage I'm talking about. You have a lot more power, you have a lot more leverage, you have a lot more say-so in where you play than many of you realize. You think, I can only go to schools, or I can only consider schools that recruit me. No, you recruit yourself to them, show that you can play, show that you can add value to them. And if you're good enough, they're going to say, oh, okay. And too many families just think, well, I'm not being recruited by that school, I must not be able to play. No, they just don't know you exist. So that's just one myth for tonight, for today, and that is college recruiting is not a one-way street. They can recruit you, but then you can recruit yourself to them, and I really encourage you to do that. Number 2, this is important. I'm speaking directly to my parents now. I mean, there are a lot of myths, by the way. I'm trying to limit it to 10, but I could probably do 20 if I really wanted to. But in the interest of time, I'm only doing a total of 10, and this is number 8. I've read a few articles recently. I've seen videos on Facebook and YouTube, and I just feel like I have to say it. So don't take it personal, Mom and Dad, if you're listening to this, but there's this big myth that college coaches only recruit and monitor players. All right. The reality is, Mom and Dad, they're looking at you too. And I don't mean to laugh, but I'm thinking about a couple stories that I've read about, refs, officials, parents trying to fight referees, fighting each other in the stands. This is really important. College coaches evaluate parents too, right? So Mom and Dad, please don't think you can go to these games, criticize the coach, criticize the refs, shout instructions to your kids, make fun of the other team, curse and swear, start fights, whatever it is, and not think that's not going to be a bad reflection on your son or daughter. It is. So that's a big myth that I just want, and it shouldn't be a myth. It should be common sense, quite frankly. Mom and Dad, go to the game, cheer your son or daughter on, but be quiet for the most part. Don't shout out plays. Don't yell at the refs. Don't yell at the coaches. Don't shout out instructions to your son or your daughter during competition, because what you're doing is you're actually sabotaging your son or daughter. Real talk. A coach, if they're evaluating your son or daughter, they're in the stands and they see that, what do you think they're thinking when they see that? Oh, this is how you guys treat this high school coach who is this is their part-time job. They're maybe making $2,000-$3,000 for the season, in a stipend. This is how you treat them. How you going to treat me when it's my turn, right? And don't think for a second that when they go to talk to your high school coach, they're not asking, so tell me about the family. Tell me about his or her parents. How are they? They're considering everything. And too many of you you have good intentions. I understand it. You're passionate. I'm not saying that makes you a bad parent, but what I am saying is that it makes your son look bad when you don't conduct yourself accordingly in the stands. On the flip side, I'll also even mention, even from a college recruiting standpoint. So we talked about how you perform or how you represent yourself during the game, but there's also a way of how you represent yourself during the recruiting process. And for the most part, especially early on in the process, coaches want to hear directly from student athletes. So when they're calling them, they want to talk to the student athlete. When they send letters, they want the student athlete to write back. Questionnaires, they want the student athlete to reply. It's not till much later on in the process when you start having visits and then you start talking about scholarships and the percentages and all that. But for the most part, at the very beginning, in the mid part of recruiting, they don't want to hear from the parents. And many of you parents are injecting yourselves into this process, and you have to step back a little bit. I'm not saying you can't have conversations with your son or your daughter one-on-one, but coaches don't want you calling them, right? Hey, here's a highlight of my kid's game. Here's a tape. Here's an article that was written about them. Here's his SAT scores. Here's her ACT scores. Here's an updated transcript. No. They don't want to hear from you. They want to hear from your son or daughter, because guess what? When they go to college, that's who they're going to be having the relationship with. And many of you are, again, I say this respectfully, but you're just helicopter parents. You're hovering over, or you're a lawnmower parent. You're trying to remove all obstacles, and coaches are just sitting back and they're thinking, okay, yeah, we don't want that. That's too much for us to deal with. And you may have good intentions, but you're actually hurting your son or daughter in the long run. So I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, because I don't want parents to get mad at me, but I do just want you to at least give yourself some pause. By no means am I telling you how to parent, but I've talked to enough coaches to know that they do evaluate parents. So take it for what it's worth. They're not just evaluating your son or your daughter. That's a big myth. They are evaluating you too. So just think about that. At the bare minimum, just do these two things. Go to the game, cheer your team on, but don't criticize the coach. Don't criticize the officials. Don't shout out plays or instructions to your son or daughter. And don't, talk trash to other parents. Don't start fights and anything like that. That's number one. And then number two, once coaches start calling your son or your daughter, you'll know, trust me, when it's appropriate. And it's really more so when it starts to coordinate, the unofficial visits, the official visits, or they want to do a home visit. Many coaches will visit you at the home. But for the most part, when they're calling your son or daughter during the season, they're texting them, they're sending them emails, they want to build that rapport with your son or your daughter. And you got to be able to step back and allow that process to happen. Don't interject too much, because if you are so hands-on, at least from the college coach's perspective, that can actually be a turnoff. Because now they're going to wonder, well, how independent is this student athlete? Are we going to be getting calls, text messages, emails, from mom and dad once they're on campus? They don't want to deal with that. So part of this is you have to understand that you have to step back a little bit. And I actually shared this with the mom tonight of the student athlete that I met with. He's a freshman. And I said, the best way for you to really support your son or daughter, at least at this phase of the recruiting process, is two things. Is keep on him for his grades, understand what core classes are all about, right? So understand core classes, keep them on track. And then two, budget. Straight up, budget. Because the college recruiting process can become expensive when you start thinking about travel teams and maybe your son or daughter's going to need a tutor, or you may need to get them a personal trainer, all that stuff, it's going to add up. So that's the number one thing you can do as a parent, is to budget, have the resources available, and also just stay on top of them academically. But that's what we got for this week. Those are the 2 new myths. I hope you found them helpful, and I love to hear from you. So please visit yourecruityou.com for today's show notes. But you can also follow us on social media. So on Instagram and Twitter, just follow us at YouRecruitYou. That's the letter U, Recruit You. And then you can search YouRecruitYou on YouTube. And I live stream, or I record all of these episodes, and then I upload them to YouTube. So if you rather watch the video of me talking, you can check us out on YouTube. But until next time, I am your college recruiting coach and host, Quito Delgado, reminding you that college recruiting starts with you. What steps are you taking today to earn an athletic scholarship tomorrow?